2020 offered its twists and turns, Jayme Stevenson, the first Selectman of Darien, has been one of the most consistent and trusted voices on the right in our steady blue state. She joins us today to talk about the COVID-19 response, affordable housing and zoning laws, and education. We'd like to thank our new premier sponsor, Digital Back Office Palo Alto Networks. Check them out at digitalbackoffice.com or paloaltonetworks.com, as well as our sponsors at Gateway and Housatonic Community Colleges. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state and local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or our member municipal leaders. Selectman Stevenson, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me today, Matt. It's a pleasure.
So you're the second vice president of CCM. You're also the chairman of the board at KERMA and many other roles. And I think one of the underappreciated threads of 2020 is that municipal leaders like yourself have had to kind of perfectly juggle responsibilities, kind of becoming de facto experts in topics like public health and all this stuff while running the town like any other year. What has been kind of the biggest hurdle for you this year, and how have you handled it?
Sure. Thank you so much. Over my 10 and 11 years of service in the town of Darien, we've certainly done a lot of role play in terms of various emergency scenarios, but nothing like an actual pandemic to put those plans to a good test. So I would say, live action, trying to respond to a pandemic that literally no one has experienced before, including our public health officials. Navigating the flow of information at all levels of government, distilling that information down in a way that we can then communicate to our communities in a way that gives them confidence and reassurance that government is here to help protect and save them from the unknown. I would say far and above, that's been the greatest challenge of the pandemic. And there's a few other things too, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Like I said, you try to plan for every contingency, but of all the things, COVID-19 was probably the least expected. And I know in Darien, after, the initial outbreak, has handled the pandemic pretty well. In your weekly briefings, you seem to have a little bit of a spike in July, but they were still well under kind of March and April. What are the roles that community and leadership play in response to the virus?
Sure. It's all hands on deck. We're all in it together. It sounds, like a nice statement, but I can honestly say that that's true, especially here in the small town of Darien. We were very concerned. Of course, public health and safety is the main role of government. But we became really concerned about our small business community here in Darien. They are the backbone of our local economy. And so we had some really interesting and unique opportunities that came forward with some local business leaders, local developers, nonprofit agencies, all joining together, from as small as marshaling a group of volunteers to begin to make cloth masks for healthcare workers and restaurant workers, to a local developer who actually raised private money to pay to restaurants to keep their workers working and provide meals to our low income and the seniors in our community.
Oh, great. So kind of two birds, one stone sort of situation there.
It was really an amazing thing. And, I want to call that project out by name. It was called Corbin Cares. And it's just one amazing example of how my community, the town of Darien, comes together and innovates at times when we all need to help one another. Yeah,
it seems like all over the place, there's people rising to the occasion and just coming up with new ideas and new things. It's a interesting time, certainly.
Absolutely.
So early on, you came out as an advocate for measures like social distancing, and now we're reaching the 6-month mark where people are kind of feeling isolation fatigue. Will moving into phase 3 help, even if cases continue to rise?
So kind of two different things that you said there, Matt. I still advocate for physical distancing from people that are non-household members.
Yep.
And I do advocate for wearing masks. It seems to be the one thing that scientists and medical professionals can agree is a way to help stop the spread of the virus. It isn't a perfect solution, though. And I would say that, to your earlier point, local elected officials trying to become experts in the area of not just public health, but infectious disease. I mean, that's a specialty, amongst the science community. But we have the good fortune of having a great relationship with Dr. Stephen Murphy of Murphy Medical Associates. He's been running our drive-through testing in Darien since the very beginning of the pandemic. I counsel with him on almost a daily basis. He keeps me apprised of the latest science, the research studies that I read. It helps me as a leader to really dig into the information. So, you know, I noticed that no one's advocating for wearing eye shields, right? We're all wearing masks so we don't spit out particles and spread the disease, but we're not protecting our eyes. And I know that that's another way that the virus can, you know, get into our bodies. But these are the small things that we must continue to do. There is no question that physical distancing and wearing masks is taking a social and emotional toll on our society, particularly the youngest people and the oldest people in our society. So we have not yet even begun to understand the implications of that social isolation.
I think we'll be kind of learning about that for years to come, probably. There'll be a lot of research coming out of all this. Now, one thing you did say on the mask is you were not for the governor's suggestions of coronavirus mandates or imposing fines on people for not doing that. You said it was a tipping point in kind of government overreach. Why do you see that as overreach? Where do you see the line?
Well, remember that, you know, since March, we have been living under governor's executive orders. And I printed out a list today to just remind myself of how many. And I think as of today, we're up to 78 gubernatorial executive orders, setting the rules and legal boundaries for all aspects of our life. I do understand that there might be some municipal leaders that are frustrated at their communities for their lack of willingness to wear masks. And they need some kind of a tool to help enforce that. In my opinion, especially in light of the fact that in special session, the legislature just put into law sweeping law enforcement changes for our police officers, who would be the ones who would write the citations, the fines for people not wearing masks. It really puts our law enforcement in an untenable position. They have not been trained to do, nor do they wish to be the mask police. One could argue that by the police issuing a citation, it could escalate an encounter between a member of the community and the police, which is expressly forbidden now in Public Act 20-1. So we will continue to do what we always do in Darien, what our law enforcement always does. We will seek voluntary compliance. We do this on a routine basis now with our other laws and regulations. So, you know, it's just too much. Everybody's doing the best they can. And mask wearing is a recommendation out of the CDC. It's a strong recommendation. But I think once you start imposing fines and requiring law enforcement to enforce those fines, it really sets up a difficult relationship between government and the people you're trying to help.
So maybe the energy would be better spent on education, telling people why they should wear the mask rather than trying to force it on them or things like that.
Absolutely. And everybody, you know, I'm sure that most people know this about me. I am a big believer in taking personal responsibility. We do have a responsibility if we're going to be out in the public. That's your choice to go out in the public, go to the grocery store and and, you know, walking downtown, if you can't stay 6 feet away from other people, it's your responsibility to wear a mask. In the same token, if you're concerned about your health, it's your personal responsibility to keep yourself away from people who aren't wearing masks. So you have to look at it from both sides.
That's true. So kind of related to this, one of the big topics right now is whether or not Halloween could be safe this year. I know you've asked for more guidance on this, along with like Mayor Cassetti of Ansonia and New Canaan Selectman Moynihan. Where in Danbury, Mayor Boughton said he was ready to move forward on Halloween. Everyone loves Halloween, especially kids. What's Darien doing for Halloween? What are you looking at for that?
So a couple of things. I am waiting for the governor's guidance on Halloween because, as I said, he's given us 78 executive orders on how to do everything else. So I would expect that he would give us some guidance along with his health experts on how to affect Halloween. I've read the guidance on the CDC website, and there's some good recommendations there. What concerns me about Halloween is if you don't allow people to trick or treat outside as traditionally people do. I've heard in my community that people are going to have parties, Halloween parties. So in my mind, I think that's much more of a risk.
Yeah, you're driving them inside into enclosed spaces by doing that rather than having them outside walking around neighborhoods.
Absolutely. So you know, Halloween's an outside event. Parents and families need to make their own decisions about whether they want to participate in Halloween. Nobody's forcing you to do that. So I am looking for a little bit more guidance. I've had the unfortunate distinction of needing to cancel Halloween twice in my tenure due to some big October storms a number of years ago. And I am not looking forward to doing that because Halloween is a beloved event. I think that we can do it safely. Listen, if kids can be outside playing soccer and participating in the activities that the governor and his team have sanctioned, I do believe there's a way to have Halloween safely.
Yeah, we just need to figure a way to get the kid candy without too much physical interaction there. I'm sure there's a way to do it.
I would agree with that. And, you know, of all the pieces of the science that there's really very little documented science on the spread of COVID from contact, from touching surfaces. Obviously you would want to, you know, if you want to really protect yourself, wear gloves. And when you get home, let your candy sit for a couple of days. If you can
wash your hands good.
And wash your hands. But, you know, I do think that contact spread, I know that was a big concern early on.
Early on, they were like, wash your hands, which is still good. Wash your hands, everybody. But it doesn't seem to be the main culprit. It seems to be through the air, through coughing and sneezing and that kind of stuff. So another kind of area of concern related to this is school with the kids. So how is Darien handling the school year?
You know, it's a mixed bag so far here in Darien. Our public schools opened in a hybrid model. And I think that's been very difficult for not only the students and their parents, but also the teachers and the administration. You know, it was great that the state set out a framework for how to go back to school, but then they let every district do something different. And I think my main concern about that is the lack of equity that I'm hearing between districts on how kids are being educated at this point in time. So Darien opened in a hybrid model. We are anticipating a full return tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So today is a big day in Darien. We're waiting to hear the final recommendation from the superintendent. And of course, you have parents on both sides of that argument. Working parents in particular have been stretched to the limit with helping their kids through e-learning and the hybrid model. Remember that for us, the hybrid model means no live learning, or at least for the youngest children, they don't have a teacher speaking to them on the computer. It's worksheets and things like that are provided every day. Need a lot of hand-holding because of the special computer system our district has chosen to use. Then you have the teachers who are, some of them don't have a good confidence that the district has done all they could to keep the classroom environment safe. There seems to be a big debate over whether it's safe to have kids in a classroom that are separated by a 3 feet distance, while the guidance from the CDC is, everybody should stay 6 feet apart. So kids will have to come back to school, they'll be 3 feet apart, wearing masks. Lunchtime is a big concern. How do you do that safely? Is it silent lunch? Can kids not speak when they have their masks off? So there's so much here. And at the heart of it all, I'm deeply concerned for the social and emotional well-being of the kids and their parents. Anecdotally, we've heard stories here in Darien of parents that have lost promotions because they haven't been able to put enough time into their job to be able to rationalize the promotion. So, when we get to that point, I think we really need to sit back and think about how we're doing what we're doing and what the real objectives are.
And finding different ways to accomplish the goals.
Yes, absolutely.
So recently you tweeted out support of an op-ed in the New York Times about the need to improve on digital learning. But you also said that kids should no longer be bound by city-town boundaries to succeed educationally. I think it kind of ties into the equity stuff you're talking about. Do you see these digital tools that make up our education as part of the COVID curriculum? Do you see them continuing afterwards? And
oh gosh, I hope so. I think this is one of the real exciting opportunities that has been fast-tracked, I'll say. It's been around. There have been a lot of initiatives with online learning. I can think of the Khan Academy and a bunch of different other initiatives. But, we had to immediately figure out how to deliver education in a digital platform. We've spent a lot of time in the state of Connecticut with my colleagues on CCM talking about how to fix the education gap between certain municipalities. And we always talk about money, and we talk about housing and things like that. When we have these tools right at our fingertips that literally should be able to erase the boundaries, any artificial geographic boundaries with education, and put every child in the presence of great teachers. And so for me, I think that is an exciting opportunity. I know that our governor is passionate about using technology in great ways, and I'm hoping, I'm not part of his circle, but I am really hoping that he sees the great opportunity here so that every child has the opportunity to have great teachers regardless of where they live.
I think, for years and years, the debate was about, maybe busing from one town to the other and those kind of things. But now with this digital stuff, you can be wherever you want and, get into that virtual classroom. So it could open up all sorts of cross-boundary opportunities in the future.
Absolutely. And there's a lot more that goes around that. There's a support network that goes around that. And I'm keenly aware. But I think that if we keep our eye on what the ultimate goal could be, that would be an amazing thing for the state of Connecticut to really embrace that. And I would love to be part of those discussions.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. Racial equity has been a major topic of concern over the past few months, especially since the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Demonstrations in Connecticut, though, have been largely peaceful. And during a Black Lives Matter march in Darien, in particular, one speaker noted directly how much he loved Darien. Has there been any changes or increased dialogue about racial equity in town?
So I would say that we are in a stage of learning. That passion is so alive and so tangible right now that I know that our school district is looking at equity and inclusion as part of their strategic plan. I personally am participating in a year-long study group with clergy to learn about racism. So I recognize that I have a lot to learn in this category. But one of the really wonderful things, and this is the first time I'm talking about it publicly, but since the largest protest march happened in Darien, I invited the leaders of that protest to join me in conversation with myself and leadership from the Darien Police Department and the Police Commission. And we have spent many meetings, untold numbers of hours, going through all of their questions and concerns. And the outcome has been that the Darien Police Department, like many departments across the state of Connecticut, are some of the best trained, most professional departments in the state and probably across the country.
Yeah.
So having that dialogue, we were able to sort of bridge an understanding of what we need to be sensitive to, but also to educate the protesters and help them understand that we're really doing a great job.
Yeah.
So is there more that we can do? There's always more that we can do. As a town leader and for the town of Darien, we want any person of any culture, any color to feel comfortable coming and living in the town of Darien. The town of Darien is more diverse today, certainly, than it was 15 years ago, and I'm very proud of that. I do not, though, support some of the sort of social engineering things that are beginning to bubble up here in Connecticut. I firmly believe that at the heart of most of these issues is education and the opportunity that good education provides to all students, and how that is the springboard for a healthy, happy, and successful life.
Yeah, it sounds like getting you and the police and the protests together, as with any sort of issue like that, conversation, talking, communication is the first step to making any sort of changes, is understanding each other.
It was the key, and it allowed us to review our own policies and to be able to communicate those in a way to give great confidence to those protest leaders that there is no resemblance of how the Darien Police Department does their business in relation to the Minneapolis police.
Yeah.
It couldn't be more different. So I believe that we've communicated that successfully. Our conversations continue. I welcome open conversations like that with anyone in my community and beyond. It's very healthy and helpful.
Outside of the kind of law enforcement part of that discussion, there's also a large discussion in Connecticut about systemic segregation and how we kind of remain a segregated state. And I know you in an op-ed for the Darien Times wrote that Darien has implemented many inclusionary zoning regulations since 2009, and saying that sometimes Darien gets misrepresented in the press for that. What are some of the ways that Darien has fostered inclusionary zoning regulations, and what are some of your plans going forward for that?
Sure. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah.
Over the last 20 years, and this is probably, I think Darien has a reputation that the New York Times especially loves to continue to remind people of, that, was based on a fictional movie at some point in the past, Gentleman's Agreement. But for the last 20 years, the town of Darien has approved for construction or actually constructed over 850 units of multifamily housing. Darien certainly isn't known for its multifamily housing. I think you might say that we're the quintessential single family community. But that has changed so much in the last 20 years. We know that people want to live differently. We know that people need housing choice. They want condominiums, they want apartments, they want single family homes. And so we endeavor to be able to provide that kind of housing choice here. And one of the ways that we've done it is by incorporating into our regulations something called, as you said, inclusionary zoning. That means if a developer wants to build 5 units or more of housing, multifamily housing, 12% of those units must be set aside as affordable.
Hmm.
So our regulation actually exceeds the standards set by 830G in the state of Connecticut, which is
Okay.
10%. And that's been very, very successful
Hmm.
because you can see affordable housing being built throughout our town, which I think
Yeah,
is the goal of housing advocates.
that's great. Just a little bit different, but talking about some of the development stuff. Have you done anything with transit-oriented development with any of that stuff?
We have right now underway 3 of the largest commercial redevelopment
Hmm.
projects in the history of the town of Darien,
Yeah.
and all 3 of them are transit oriented.
Hmm.
Quite literally, 2 of them are immediately adjacent to the Norotan Heights train
Hmm.
station. You walk
Yep.
across the street to your new apartment, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then the other is in the heart of our downtown, which again is a block and a half from the Darien train station. The good news is that
Yeah.
Darien's small. Everything
Yeah.
is pretty much transit oriented here.
Yeah.
You know, we're bisected by I-95 and the Merritt Parkway and Route
Hmm.
1. So everything that we do development wise really is closely related to transit corridors.
Yeah. As much as I enjoy Darien, it's a great town. I often do go to Darien to Norotan Heights and take the train in from there when I'm going into the city
There you
because
go.
it's kind of, on the
Yes.
weekend, it's a nice place to park and you're right quick into the city. So I've definitely
Yes.
done that myself many times. What does the future hold for Darien? What are your priorities going into 2021?
Yeah. I will certainly have to put our health and safety at the top
Mm.
of that list. But I'm not only talking about physical health and safety with whatever the coronavirus is going to
Hmm.
bring for us in the coming months. I'm talking about our mental well-being.
Yeah.
As human beings, we've never experienced something like this. And I'm concerned that we're not hearing publicly the statistics on suicide or attempted
Hmm.
suicide and drug overdose. That was a huge focus of ours before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I'm very fearful for the mental health of my community. So we'll
Hmm.
continue to work with our community partners to make sure that folks know that we're here, that we have resources for them
Yeah.
as we begin to work through this. The vaccine may not be the panacea that we all hope.
Hmm.
I'm hearing mixed messages from my community about folks who are eager for it and then
Yeah.
folks who really are going to be afraid to take that
Hmm.
vaccine. So I think we're going to be living with some of these restrictions for quite some time.
Yeah.
I hope we can all come to a collective understanding of how we can live with this virus,
Hmm.
but get back to some kind of normal living
Hmm.
scenario. And then, of course, we can't not talk about the election that's coming up.
Yeah.
And whatever the outcomes of that election might be in terms of either moving forward or community unrest or
Hmm.
whatever that might bring. So that's really top of mind for
Yeah.
me. We always take it as it comes here. I'm deeply gratified by the collaboration that I can have with my colleagues with CCM,
Hmm.
with the Council of Small Towns, with my colleagues in the West Cog, and all of the assistance that we've gotten
Yeah.
from our legal counsel since March on COVID. I know that will continue, and
Hmm.
if we all can address it together, we're going to get through it together.
Collaborating for the common good, CCM's motto right there.
There you go.
All right. Thanks so much for talking with us today, Selectman.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, Matt.
We'd like to thank our guest, First Selectman Jayme Stevenson. Thanks to our sponsors, Digital Back Office Palo Alto Networks, which you can check out at digitalbackoffice.com and paloaltonetworks.com, and Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer, Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page.